Hi guys, it's Mary McIntyre. Welcome back to my channel. This video is a little bit late than my normal kind of informal upload schedule that I keep because I've been waiting for delivery of these. These are two acrylic discs. They're just a couple of mil thick and I ordered them on eBay. They've been laser cut. They're both 40 centimeters across. The reason I've bought these is because I'm going to a fancy event and I'm going to need to be in my wheelchair for it because I won't be able to stand all night, and I want to jazz up my wheelchair. Now you may remember last year I did some crocheted wheelchair discs and I do really like them, but I really want space ones. I've wanted space ones from the very beginning. You used to be able to buy the blank acrylic wheelchair discs that are kind of domed to fit the shape of the spokes of the wheelchair. You used to be able to get them for about £36 for a pair, and I thought that was quite pricey back then, so I didn't get them. They're now more than double that, and if you want any with the design on, you're looking at about £120, and I just cannot afford that. So I've got loads of resin here, so what I've done is I've ordered these. They were fairly inexpensive online. I think I paid about £15 each, something like that. Now I'm going to have to cut the centre out at some point because I need to be able to get to the quick release button on my wheelchair so that I can take the wheels off it, and also to allow for the fact that these are flat and my wheelchair wheel spokes are not flat. So I'm probably going to have to cut about a 10 centimetre or so gap out of the middle, whatever I do with these. But I figured it'd be easier to do the kind of design on them first and then cut it and just hope that it doesn't cause some kind of catastrophe. We haven't fully figured out how we're going to attach them to the wheelchair wheels yet, but I just wanted to get on with this project. So I remember seeing people doing kind of galaxy nebula type art with epoxy resin years and years and years ago, and I've kind of dabbled with that a little bit with trinket trays and stuff, but I'm going to do it on a big scale here. So I'm going to do it in a couple of layers. So for my first layer, I'm going to be using the Apex high gloss resin for both layers. I'm going to colour this first layer black with my Vista black pigment, and once it's kind of spread out a little bit, I'm going to sprinkle some bits of glitter around. If I mix it in, it's going to sink and then you won't see the glitter. So what I'm going to do is, once I've kind of spread it out, hit it with the heat gun, just add little sprinkles of glitter here and there, focusing on the outer edges because I'm going to have to cut the centre out, so there's no point focusing loads of materials there. I've calculated how much resin it would take to fill this if this was a 1 centimetre deep mould, and it would be basically 1.2 litres of resin, which is a huge amount. I've divided that by 10 basically, so that would give me a 1mm thick layer. It should be enough, but what I'm going to do is add a little bit more. So I'm going to make up a couple of 100 mils of resin with the black pigment in there, and hopefully I'll be able to spread that out to the edges. Now this is bigger than any resin project I've done before. I did top coat my mobility scooter panels after I'd painted it, but it's going to be difficult for me to kind of control all this with my silicone mat. So what I've done is I've used strong foil and I've made a little wall around it, so if any of the resin does come over the edge, hopefully it won't, but if it does, it will be contained here. And I'm just hoping my desk is level enough to pull this off. They've got quite a harsh edge. It's like a right angled edge. So if I'm super careful about where I push the resin to, hopefully we'll be okay. And if it's not okay, we'll fix it in the next layer. So that's fine. So first step is I'm going to peel the protective film off one side. I'm going to leave it on the underside and I'll take that off when I'm finished. And then I'm going to mix up my resin off camera. I am going to be wearing my nitrile gloves and my respirator, of course, when I'm working with resin, and I have my Apex Angels apron on. So yeah, my glitter came from either Amazon or from the range here in the UK. I've also got my chameleon powders out because I may just tap a tiny little sprinkle of it here and there to sit on the surface. So there's going to be at least 2 layers, so I'm going to crack on and get that done now so that this other layer can go on tomorrow. Let's get started. Okay, before I mix my resin, let's do the very satisfying thing of peeling this film off. didn't say in the intro, but I've got these standing on some little medicine cups just to keep them off the foil. That way, if there are any drips, they're not going to bond to the foil and give me a problem. Let's get this second one off. Oh, interesting, they're different colours. Maybe I was supposed to take the... Have they got a blue on one side, white on the other? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Right, get that out of the way. So I'm going to mix up my resin off camera and I'll be back to start pouring. Black resin down on top of the acrylic disc, and I was hoping that this amount of resin was going to give me a thin layer on both of them. That turned out not to be the case, so I realized I was just going to focus on one at a time. So I was trying to encourage this resin to the edge of the disc but without flowing over the sides if possible. It would have been a lot easier if I had remembered to level these, but I didn't remember. But this one actually behaved itself and none of the resin actually went over. That was not the case on the second one, which I did off camera. So once the resin had kind of thickened up a little bit, I was making sure it had got to the edges. I'd hit it with the heat gun to get rid of air bubbles. And then I went in with my glitter. So I was picking up all the different kinds and colours of glitter, adding a little bit on my spoon or on a brush, and then just tapping it onto the surface. That way, with the resin being a bit thicker, it would stop the glitter from sinking down to the bottom. So I just used a variety of different colours and textures of glitter just to give me like lots of different sorts of sparkle. And then I left that to cure overnight. Right, it's time for layer number 2. Today's Monday. I did the first one on Saturday. I just didn't have time yesterday to come in. Now, the second one that I didn't film, oh my god, the resin was just pouring off 2 different opposite sides at the same time. Made a massive mess. So, remember, if you're going to do something like this, check that the surface is level. These were very much not level. I got away with it with that one, not so much this one. I have now put 4 medicine cups under each, and I've used foil to lift them up as necessary to make sure that they're both level in both forward and back and side to side. So they're already looking kind of cool, but because it wasn't level, the back here is kind of quite see-through. The resin is so thin on this back edge on both of them that you can kind of see straight through underneath, whereas down here is jet black. So for this layer, I'm going to focus my colours on that back edge initially and then kind of blow them around with the heat gun. There's already a lot of colour here. What I'm trying to do here is add some more wisps of nebulosity within a clear layer. So I'm using the Apex high gloss resin again. I'm going to mostly keep it clear with a little bit of this gorgeous iridescent glitter. Maybe a few of these opal flakes as well in the clear layer. Just a little bit, just to add a little extra sparkle. Then I'm going to take some of that resin out and just mix a little bit of blue mica, purple, a little bit of white, where I'm going to put a tiny bit of the Vista white pigment and some of this metallic white powder. And again, a really small amount of gold. You don't need a lot of colour here. The idea is to blow it around with the heat gun and get it super blended so that you've got a subtle, almost translucent kind of effect, and you'll still be able to see all of this stuff through that. So I'm going to kind of err on the side of caution and not put too much on for this layer. And if it ends up drying a bit lumpy, I can go on top just with a completely clear layer if I want to. Might not need to. I've also taken the decision that I have masking taped my edges this time because honestly the stress trying to scoop up all that spilt resin was, I hadn't got any moulds to hand. Managed to grab some coaster moulds, but they were not big enough to catch the absolute mess that was going on under here. So do not want a repeat of that. Don't want it running through the foil and down onto the carpet in here. So would not be ideal. So this I'm going to mix my resin for 5 minutes, add the glitter and split some out first, add some glitter, add the mica powder, and then I will be back to pour and blow this around with my heat gun. So I'm just using my small heat gun here. So remember, this is a pair of discs, but they're not even, or you always say they're sisters, not twins, but I think these are not even sisters. They're probably going to be more like cousins rather than twins. But that's okay, because in my wheelchair you can never see them both at the same time, so who cares? So this is the clear resin with a couple of different kinds of glitter in there. I had a lot of the iridescent glitter and a couple of little fragments of silver. So I put that clear down first, focusing around the outside because I knew that I was going to end up cutting the middles out of these. I did end up filling it all anyway, but to begin with I just put that clear layer down around the edges, spread it with my silicone tool and hit it with the heat gun to just help it spread nicely. Then I started going in with my colours. So I was just blobbing it around because resin is going to move anyway as it cures, but I was also hitting it with the heat gun to help it blend. And the more it blends with the heat gun and also by tilting it, the more blended everything looks and the more kind of realistically nebula that you kind of end up with everything looking. I'm so glad that I went for the gold. Gold isn't normally something I gravitate towards, but it really just added that pop of just beautiful metallic gold into the design, which I really, really loved. Once I was happy with the whole of the design in general, there was still a gap in the middle, so I just went in with all the leftover resin that I had and just dumped it into the middle just to make sure that everything would spread nicely and give me an even layer on top. And I just tilted that around again and hit it with the heat gun multiple times just to give me that beautiful design. And the final result was so beautiful. I was really gutted I had to cut the middle out, but just by kind of moving it around and just blending it, it just gives you that gorgeous spacey vibe that I was going for. And you can still see the layer below through that, so it just gives it so much depth. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. I wish I had not masked the edges with masking tape because there were some areas, I did level these before doing this, but there were some areas where the resin had kind of crept up the sides a little bit and the finish on that's not perfect, but I still think the final result is great. So I let that cure for a couple of days before messing around any further. Layer number 2 done. I may have overdone the sparkles. There's so much glitter here. The camera's not picking up the sparkle, but oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Look at that. Kind of gutted I've got to cut the middle out of these now. that's that one. This is the other. So cool. Oh gosh, the glitter. Really hard to pick up the sparkle. So cool. I love them. So, to figure out how I'm going to attach the discs to the wheels, these are the wheels. I need to cut the centre of these out because I need access to this to release the wheels from the wheelchair to get it in the car. But also these spokes are angled up to the centre. They're not very steeply angled, but they are angled. So I measured how far they protrude, and I think that a 10cm diameter hole will be big enough. So I need to do that, but once I've cut the hole, the way that I thought would work well is to use these bicycle spoke clips that I've had for literally 15 years. They were from a Bike Week event years ago. So these are holographic and you go on your push bike on the spokes of your bicycle, and when a car headlight hits you, they show up. They've got these like clips on the back, so if they go on the back like this. Actually, it may work going like that. I think it actually is going to be better on the front. So you just line those up and push those on. What I can then do is use this kind of weird cushion tape. It's very adhesive, but it's not permanent. So you can peel it off. It's kind of thick stuff. It's very gummy, but quite strong. So as long as the hole in the centre is big enough to get the disc actually kind of matching up and making enough contact with this spoke disc, they should stay on like that. I think to finish this off better, it needs another top coat, but I'm not going to do that until I've cut the centre out, because I'm sure it's going to rag up the edges. Whatever method we use to cut this out is going to cause some kind of mess around the edge. So I've got some overspill here, so I'm just going to have to accept that I need to flood coat this and just get layers and layers of foil on my desk to catch that, because it's going to come out of everywhere. But first things first, I need to get the hole cut out of the centre. They look a lot better with the black spray paint on the back. You can no longer see through quite so well. They're so beautiful. I'm kind of gutted that I've got to cut the middle out, to be honest, but I always knew that was going to be the plan, so it's not like I'm having to do something bad. I knew that I was making this with the intention of cutting that middle bit out. I'll have to wait till my husband finishes work, because I have no idea how the hell I'm going to cut a 10cm hole out of these discs. Me and drills have a bit of a history, so I'm going to wait until I can get some guidance on the best way to do that. Probably a hole saw, but I don't think we have a 10cm diameter hole saw, but I guess we can cut out whatever hole saw thing we have and then just kind of file away the middle bit. Of course, a cat has to walk through the shop. Would it even be a Mary McIntyre video without a cat? Okay, scary time. I've drilled a pilot hole. I found a centre of these discs. I've put masking tape on the front and back just to try to help get a smoother cut. I've got this hole saw, which is not quite the diameter I need, but I'm going to try it first. Test it on the wheels. If I need to go more, I've already marked out my 10cm diameter, which should be enough, and I'll go around with my Dremel and just take away the inner edge until I've got to the 10cm line. I've got a block of wood here with the massive hole in the middle, so that when I drill through this, it's got something to fit onto and doesn't kind of cause any cracking. Not looking forward to this step, I've got to be honest. It feels such a shame to be chomping out this piece. It'd be better if I had a 10cm hole saw, but I don't, so I just have to make do. I'm already prepared for the fact I'm going to have to sand down all of the edges and top coat it, do a flood coat. I'm not keen on the ridges that I've ended up with here when I masked it. I'm going to take these outside so that I'm not breathing in bits of resin. I'm going to stick a mask on anyway, even though I'm doing it outdoors, because you really don't want to breathe that stuff in. Ah, right, okay, I've just got to be brave and get this done. I've never used a hole saw before, and it was a bit of a nightmare. But I got there in the end. It was a bit tricky. You've got to kind of get the pressure just right. I really wish that we'd had one that was big enough to do this in one go, but I managed to chomp out this circle on both of them, and then I had to kind of get on it with my Dremel. With my Dremel at first, I really didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't sure which tool was going to be best, but then my husband realised that the circular cutting discs would work if you kind of used it on its side. So once I'd battled with the hole saw, I just let Mark show me how he would cut around to just make that aperture 10cm. So he did this one, and then I took over and did the other one, and then gave them a really good kind of sand down with the sanding bit on my Dremel to try to get a smooth edge.
Once I was happy with the aperture of the hole, I peeled all the masking tape off and I gave everything a light sand just so that the top coat would adhere better. I could have sanded more, but I was just worried I was going to pull the glitter out because some of it was still poking through. Obviously, I'm now trying to flood coat with a hole in the centre, so it made it a little bit trickier, but I didn't have too much overspill. Just added the clear, I didn't add any more glitter, and then I just spread it out, hit it with the heat gun to get rid of bubbles, and then left it well alone. And obviously I made sure that these were level before I poured the resin onto them. I really wish that I'd had these cut with the hole missing to begin with. I think it would have made my life a lot easier. But yeah, stay tuned to see how I attach them.
So what I've done is I've had a look again at the angle and the width of the gap between where the discs are and where my spoke discs are that I want to attach them to. What I did is I wedged in some blue tack and squashed it on to kind of get a blank shape and get the angle. So the flat side is going to stick on the wheel discs, and I've painted those black, so areas that are a little bit more translucent, we're not going to see the wooden blocks through it. The sides I've painted black so that they kind of blend in. So these flat edges are going to attach to the discs. That angle there is going to attach to the spokes to correct the spoke angle. And I didn't paint this side because I think that the gummy tape stuff that I'm using is going to bond better onto the spoke discs with bare wood than it will paint. Okay, these blocks are now on all of the spoke discs, and that gummy cushion tape is pretty secure, so I'm hopeful that this tape will hold. So I'm going to pop the wheels off and put the discs on looking down flat on them, then I can get a good push and get good contact with this tape. Then I'll be back for the reveal. Just as an extra little bit of something, I've made a new tabard to go over the back of my wheelchair just to make it look a little bit more exciting and less boring. So I am so excited to get these discs on, and let's see how they look.
I kind of don't have words for how happy this project has made me. The glitter, I thought I'd overdone it with the glitter, but in the sunlight you can see how sparkly they are. In artificial light, they're really sparkly. They're just so beautiful, and even when you can't see the sparkle from the glitter, the overall design is really pretty. The hole in the center is not perfectly round. I've got some creeping up the sides where I didn't sand off the excess well enough, but honestly, I've wanted these discs for over a decade, and I've just made these myself. They've got so much more depth to them than the ones that you buy that are just printed, that are very two-dimensional. You can see probably from the back that I painted the back of these spoke discs because they were bright green and they were really standing out. So now I've painted those black. They blend in well with the back of the discs. I am so happy with these, and there are many things I would do differently if I made another set, but I love them. And with the kind of back panel that I made as well, the whole wheelchair has just been transformed into something that just looks a lot cooler and less institutional. I love them. I love them so much, and I'm really happy that the gummy tape seems to be holding really well. The overall design turned out really well. This is by far the biggest resin thing I've ever made, and I honestly am in love with them. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you understand what an important project this is for me. It's just amazing. I don't have the words. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you so much for being here and for being patient while I've not been uploading as regularly. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.